Okay, so Feral Druid might be the most balanced spec in the game. I ran around doing bonus objectives, which is probably the most I've done on any character as I've been leveling them to 70. I did some dungeons. Dungeons honestly weren't all that exciting. Everything worked as you would expect it to, so dungeons just really weren't all that exciting. It was just going through your rotation. I did PvP. I actually managed to solo some players in some games and was able to steal some bases, so I want to go over that. And then I went to the Forbidden Reach because I had seen where players were saying they went out there and they were able to get experience and level. My impression was running around killing rares as you do for the Forbidden Reach. So I was just kind of curious. So I went out, and while you can run around and kill rares, they don't scale to your level, and you don't get a ton of experience. You do get experience, you just don't get that much of it. So it really doesn't make it worthwhile to run around and kill rares. Um, so I went back, did some bonus objectives, did some dungeons, got to level 70. If I had a criticism for Feral Druid, it would be with the talent, specifically the Druid um, talents. I think they crammed too much in trying to make each row for a different spec. They don't really interact with one another, and you if anything, there's too many healing spells. You really have um, things that either you can't use because you're in the wrong shapeshift form, or just aren't that useful to you in general. So I was thinking about it, and if they had put something in where the specs crossed over more, um, like after you use spend so many combo points, you can use Maul within 5 seconds, and vice versa. After you spend so much rage, you can use Ferocious Bite within 5 seconds, something like that. Use something you could have built talents around that wouldn't have changed the specs too much, but would have been something different. Um, that is pretty much my main criticism at this point. The feral side of the talents is more well rounded. You can kind of just set it up for whatever it is you're wanting to do. You don't really have to wait and level and get some points and finish kind of rounding out your build as you level. You can kind of get everything right from the beginning. I went from level 60 to level 70 playing just Feral, and I had no issues at all. There are a little more options, I feel like, on the Feral side than the Druid side. Um, Other than that, again, kind of depends on what you're doing. Um, Even for rating though, I can't really see there being too many options. Just for, as I said, if you're in, feral form, you can't use any of Guardian's abilities, and you can't use any of balanced abilities. And if you use any healing abilities, you are taken out of um, your cat form. So, um, there's two ways to set this up, depending on how you want to play. So, you can set it up how I have it, which is more single target focus, which is more how kind of assassination plays with Rogue. So you have your main combo point generator with Shred, and then you just spend your combo points either on direct damage with Ferocious Bite or with damage over time with Rip. If you wanted to change it so it played a little more like subtlety, you could just move Thrash, which would be your Fan of Knives, where Ferocious Bite is, move Ferocious Bite where Rip is, and then just move Rip where Thrash is. So, depending on um, what target you were on, if you were using um, Thrash, you could just use the combo points from that on Ferocious Bite. If you were on a target, you would just a single target. You would just want to make sure you had Rip, and then just spam Ferocious Bite until you needed to reapply Rip. So fairly um, straightforward. You do have a AoE finishing move, Primal Wrath. You don't really need to take it unless you're doing like Mythic Plus or rating or something. I hardly ever use Thrash outside of dungeons. It doesn't really come in all that useful. So, what I will typically do is use Wild Charge, which is your Shadow Step. Um, then Shred, Rip, which also applies a dot. If I'm on a elite or a rare boss, something like that, I'll use Feral Frenzy. Um, and then by that point, I usually have 4, 5 combo points. So I started out using Maul, which is your kidney shot. It just stuns the target. Um, However, I've started just going and applying Rip instead, and then spamming Shred, and then Ferocious Bite, and just rinse and repeat until the target's dead, basically. And that is more than enough, especially as you level and you get better gear and everything. Um, Now, this character had fairly decent gear starting out because I did Mythic Plus in Shadowlands. She actually got the mount from Season 4. So, she was actually pretty geared um, right from the beginning. So, if you have a character maybe you haven't played in a while or that has mostly greens, you might have a little more difficulty. I know in the past, when I've tried to mess around with Feral, um, that was kind of a problem. Was I couldn't deal enough damage before I died. Um, that being said, one of the things that I really have been liking playing with Feral is predatory swiftness. So your finishing moves have a percent per combo point to make regrowth and entangling roots instant, free, and usable in all forms. So what that means is it is in fact possible, and I do it most of the time, to keep regrowth up on yourself 100% of the time. So I've managed to get out of some close calls um, using that, and it procs fairly often. Now, regrowth does two things. It's your big um, kind of overtime heal if you play restoration. Um, it also does immediate healing. So it's healing you and then it's healing you over time. So it's doing two things. So you can take advantage of that instant healing and just keep reapplying it to yourself. You're not really worried about the heal over time. Usually with restoration, a lot of the abilities are heal over time, so you don't want to reapply them. until you absolutely have to, because otherwise you've wasted the healing. That same kind of um, uh, idea doesn't really apply if you're applying it to yourself necessarily. Um, you just keep reapplying it. My health has been fairly low. You can in fact die. Um, However, if you're just out questing or dungeons, PvP, what have you, um, it's a substantial amount of healing. Um, it's nice they gave you entangling roots. However, my issue with entangling roots is damage can cancel the effect. So it's not um, it's not that it's not good. So far from everything I've done, there's just been a very few instances where I've ever needed to use it. Regrowth definitely is the better of the two to use. Um, so, with that being said, you're doing instant damage, you're doing overtime damage. You can keep a heal on yourself 100% of the time. So, that's pretty good, all in all. I haven't had to use Tiger's Fury. I use Bark Skin and in rare circumstances Survival Instincts. Um, I used Berserk a few times doing dungeons. So you don't have um, obviously you don't have a way to um, re-stealth when you're in combat as you do with a rogue. You don't have a vanish. You have prowl, which affects two of your abilities. So shred will do more critical strike damage, and rake will stun the target, which wild charge also dazes the target, so it stuns as well. So you can kind of stack your opening like you would with a rogue a bit. However, what I have found with um, Feral is you need to learn to kite your targets. That was how I was able to solo players in PvP, was just kiting them around, and I managed to get their health low enough. Again, with regrowth, reapplying it, I was able to kind of out heal while doing enough damage to lower their health that um, I was able to kill them before they killed me. So you just have to be able to kite around, which in that instance, entangling roots did come in handy once or twice. The problem there is then you're having to make a choice between healing yourself, which may be the difference between um, life or death, or using entangling roots to slow or um, you know delay for someone to come and help you something. So it's kind of a use your judgment. Um, that may be where bark skin or survival instincts comes in more handy. So what Berserk does is kind of like a shadow dance, if you will. It acts as though your abilities are in stealth, so in prowl. So um, shred will do more critical strike damage, and rake will stun and deal more damage if possible. So not every um, NPC, of course, can be stunned. So if they're not able to be stunned, the other effects still work. It just doesn't stun them, which is not something every ability does. Some abilities that have a stun effect, if the stun doesn't go off, the entire ability just doesn't do anything. Um, Others, if the like I said, if the target's not able to be stunned, it will still put the bleed on. It will still do the extra damage, all of that. So what I find is it also works kind of like a King's Blade, um, or King's Bane, King's Bane, excuse me, where it will basically Berserk will just automatically keep refilling your combo points. So you can pretty much just spam ferocious bites. Um, don't have any trouble generating combo points. Don't have any trouble with energy or anything like that. You do enough auto attack damage as well that waiting a few seconds for your energy to regenerate a little bit is not the end of the world. So you can pretty well get through it fine. And you're also going to be applying regrowth. So you already have kind of a few seconds throughout any one encounter that you're hitting a non-damaging ability anyway, so that kind of helps with your energy regeneration. Um, so, yeah, I think that was pretty much everything. So, as far as the talents that I took, um, as I said, the druid side was a little tougher. Um, for the main fact that not everything works while you're in feral. So I ended up taking you gain 6% of a stat while in each form, which was kind of interesting. The percentage is fairly low. Took 3 talent points. Excuse me. However, it did something for each um, form you were in, and each stat that it grants you is appropriate for that form. So, if I needed something for um, just my regular, no, just my regular, um, you know, my regular night elf form. Haste is what I would need because I have Wrath and Moonfire, or I have Rejuvenation and Swift Med, which are just the baseline abilities you get. Um, Critical Strike for cat form is pretty good. I'll show you. So out of cat form. So my critical strike is 15%, and then it goes to 21. So that's pretty good increase all in all. You see my haste. So I mean that's not bad. And then I don't have a moonkin form. Um, so yeah, so just went ahead and put the points in there. That was about the only worthwhile thing I could really find that made any sense. I'd pretty much taken everything else. Um, just working down the feral side of the tree. Um, yeah, did take a few things for bear form just on the off chance that if I do anything with PvP, there may be a chance I might end up with the flag. So, um, went ahead and grabbed like iron fur and yeah, frenzy regeneration. So yeah, so I can do healing. I can kind of quasi tank if need be. This would not be enough to probably do a dungeon unless I was super geared, and we were just kind of steamrolling it. Um, maybe I could tank if we had a healer or a class that could off heal. Depending on the dungeon. Um, yeah, and then the last one I just put into Forest Walk. Regrowth increases your movement speed and healing received. So I kind of went back and forth between renewal and like forest walk. I don't really think I need renewal. Um, predatory swiftness is that good that, like I said, I can keep regrowth up 100% of the time. If I have regrowth up and I'm running through my rotation and I die anyway, most likely I was just going to die. I've either overpulled or I don't have enough DPS or I missed an interrupt of an ability or something. There's some other factor in there. It's not going to be health. Um, so yeah. Um, and then for the feral points, I kind of went more down. So the left side is more kind of your single target. The right side is more seems more focused towards AoE. So I went down more of the AoE side. Um, basically just took things that enhance what I already took. Um, yeah, I think rip damage increased. I think that was one. Clear casting abilities generates 50% of their energy cost. Um, rip damage has a 4% chance to make your next feral bite free and deal the maximum damage. 4% is about right. You don't get the proc very often, but it does happen um, somewhat frequently. So um, you never know when you might be at that point where you're about to die and an ability procs and you're able to live. You just get that little bit of damage that you needed. So um, I did take Adaptive Swarm. There's a few different specs that have this, and I kind of kept skipping over it. I'm assuming it was a Necrolord ability from Shadowlands, since they've worked in the Covenant abilities into various talents here and there. Um, seems to work fine. I just took it just for the sake of it, just to play around. Um, definitely was worth taking Feral Frenzy. Um, have no complaints there. I'm not entirely sure. So, Adaptive Swarm said it heals or deals damage and increases the effectiveness of your periodic effects on the target. Um, so I'm not sure. I assume the way that it's worded, it does one or the other. In practice, I know it's doing the damage. I don't think it's doing any healing. Um, and I'm not entirely sure about the periodic effects. It just kind of seems to do damage once, and then I'm not sure after that. Um, I definitely have noticed an increase to my damage since I took, because it was a level or two ago that I think it was the last level. Yeah, I think it was a talent point for the last level, because I think this was the last talent I took for Feral, and then Forest Walk was the last talent I took for Druid before I hit 70. Um, yeah, so like I said, just playing around, not not really recommending this one way or the other. Just was kind of playing around with the abilities. as like I said, Feral is so actually works together and everything where I was good. I'm only using maybe 2/3 of my abilities at any given time, depending on how long the fight is. So if you can get yourself to where you can just rinse and repeat, you'll be fine. So as far as my PvP talents, leader of the pack, high winds, and wicked claws. So, and if I'm in prowl and I use wild charge and rip, feral frenzy, um, maybe one use of shred, and then main um, to stun and do damage. So very much like kidney shots. If you've taken the talent, so it'll add a bleed. Um, I do a pretty good amount of damage. Not as much as Rogue, but at least 1/3, half their health, depending on the targets. Taking down a warrior, just solo, like I said, just kiting. Um, the agility does work with something like a warrior. When they try to whirlwind, you can run out of it and then wild charge to not only leap back in, but leap behind them, stun them. Doesn't always work. When things go south, you don't have a vanish, so you can't stealth or anything like that. I do have Shadow Mend, but it's not really the same thing. It doesn't really work in the same way. Um, so you either kind of. However, that being said, Feral is more intended to be played out of stealth, whereas Rogue, you're for the most part intended to bounce back and forth between your out of stealth abilities and your in stealth abilities. So it's a little more. There's a little more coordination to make sure everything. If you want to get the maximum, the most efficient rotation you can, the maximum amount of damage. Um, so there are occasions where if things go south, you can just start running through your rotation, and you're fine. So um, Maim has a 20-second cooldown, which isn't terribly long. It can be long in PvP. Again, you have entangling roots if you need to put some distance between you and a target. Um, you have, berserk, so you do kind of have a stun with rake if you need one. Um, trying to take a target down or trying to wait for someone else to come to help you, to aid you in PvP. So all in all, not bad. So it's the most I've played a class. Like I said, from 60 to 70. So it's the most I've played any one class leveling. Um, so yeah. So there you go. Okay, so I want to set up Feral since I've been doing so much with my Rogue. In fact, as of 10.0.7, our current patch, partially thanks to Primalist gear, my Rogue is my um, highest geared character at the moment, just slightly. So I was actually doing something on my Druid the other day for my Rogue and switched over to cat form and was realizing there are some similarities. I know it's not exactly alike. So want to set up Feral. I did a lot with my Druid in Shadowlands. I got the Mythic Plus mount, as you can see. So I've done very little with Feral. So that's why I thought, since I'm kind of used to combo points, used to energy, now would be a good time to set Feral up, um, kind of somewhat compare, but just see what Feral was like to play. So this is what my talents look like. Um, they've been like this since launch, so I've done nothing with my Druid. So okay, so as I've been doing, I'm going to start with the spec specific talents. So Tiger's Fury is like your Adrenaline Rush. Um, Clear casting, making your next Shred, Thrash, or Swipe cost no energy, and deal 50% energy. Yes, okay. Your combo point regeneration abilities have a 10% chance to generate one additional combo point. 20% chance. Applies Rip to all enemies within 8 yards. So Rip is your Rupture. Basically, it's your dot. I don't actually know that I need that. Because I have Ferocious Bite, which just does direct damage. Rip. Maim, which is your kidney shot. Um, and that's really all I use on rogues. I don't know that I need like an AoE. I kind of want to do PvP, maybe some questing. Um, I don't know that I'll do much with dungeons or anything, so I don't know that AoE is going to be super helpful. Shred deals 20% increased damage, and Swipe deals 15% increased damage. So Swipe is just a direct AoE damage, where Thrash applies a bleed, I thought, and periodic bleed damage, yeah. Okay. The cooldown on Tiger's Fury resets when a target dies with one or more of your bleed effects active. And Tiger's Fury lasts 5 additional seconds. Okay. I don't use Adrenaline Rush a whole lot. I might use Tiger's Fury more. It has a much shorter cooldown. So I will work under the assumption that I'm going to be using this more. Ferocious Bite deals 15% increased damage and increases all damage dealt by Rib by 5% per combo point spent over 4 seconds. So Ferocious Bite deals increased damage and increases all damage dealt by Rib. So I'm going to say yes. Because I find on Rogue that, so once you apply your bleed, then I pretty much just spam my like Envenom and just do direct damage. So yeah. So that should be good. Maximum energy increased by 30 in regeneration. Yes. Yes. While stealth, Rake also stuns the target for 4 seconds and deals 6% increased damage. While stealth, Shred deals 60% increased damage, has double the chance to critical strike, and generates 1 additional combo point. Now, see, this is where it gets tricky, because I do know from previous experience looking at Feral, the stun is where like the big difference is between Feral Druid and Rogue. So you have stuns, you just don't have a lot of them. It's not as built around stunning and kind of the CC that Rogue is. So I have Maim, which will stun for 5 seconds. So theoretically I could Rake. I don't know. I think Stealth breaks immediately. I don't think I have anything that um, like a subterfuge kind of ability. Finishing moves, percent refund, deal damage as though you were stealth. Okay. Yeah, so no. So stealth is going to break immediately after I use something. So I'm going to get one use of Rake, and then I'm going to need to generate Rake deals or awards one combo point. One combo point. So about 3-4 seconds. So about 8 seconds I can stun, give or take. Which is not all bad. If I'm in a situation such as running around the Forbidden Reach, as I've done with my rogue, a lot of the rares are immune to stun, so it'd probably be better to use Shred, obviously. So this is flexible. Finishing moves have a 6% chance per combo point spent to make your next Rake or Shred deal additional damage as though they were stealth. That I like. Ferocious Bite hits all nearby enemies affected by your rip for 35% of the damage dealt. Damage increased. Damage reduced beyond 5 targets. Reduces all damage taken by 50% for 6 seconds. So I don't have a Fint, as far as I know. I have Bark Skin. 3-minute cooldown, but it comes with 2 charges? No, maybe 1 charge. So that would be my evasion. Yeah. For the moment, I'll go ahead and take it just to see if I actually need it. Rake damage increased by 30%, and Rake causes an infected wound in the target, reducing the target's movement speed by 20% for 12 seconds. So that is like a poison effect. So it's like crippling poison, basically. So Ferocious Bite deals 5% increased damage for each of your bleeds on the target. So that would be 2, right? Yeah, because Shred does direct damage. Rip is a bleed. Rake is a bleed. Thrash if you were to use Thrash. So yeah, at least two. So 10% increased damage if they're both on the target. Um, by 40%. Moonfire is usable in cat form, costs 30 energy and generates 1 additional combo point. I don't know that I need that. I've played around with it on Guardian, and it's not something you use all the time, so your finishing moves have a 20% chance per combo point to make your next regrowth or entangling roots instant, free, and castable in all forms. I think so. Berserk. Go Berserk for 20 seconds. Well, Berserk finishing moves have a 20% chance per combo point spent to refund 2 combo points. Swipe generates 1 additional combo point. Rake and Shred deal damage as though you were stealth. So that's my big cooldown. Okay. So okay. I can see the value in that. I'm trying to think. Yeah, so you have Tiger's Fury as kind of your shorter, um, cooldown, and then Berserk is kind of your bigger CD. So yeah, I was trying to think like how I would use these. So Tiger's Fury would actually be more like Death's Mark. Like you'd use it more sparingly. And then Berserk would be something you'd use more like on a main target. Like a rare or um, like in PvP, like if you were gonna go before you like went one on one. Um, so yeah. I think kind of worked out how to use this. So I'm putting a yeah. Yeah, I'm putting like an asterisk by this. So rip damage increased by 15%. Okay. Swipe and thrash. Damage is increased by 20. Slash all enemies with a massive slash, inflicting physical damage, dealing 50% increased damage against bleed targets. Okay. Yes. Finishing moves extend the duration of Tiger's Fury by 0.4 seconds per combo point spent. Tiger's Fury causes your next 3 finishing moves to restore 1 combo point. I think that's more valuable. Okay. Each combo point spent reduces the cooldown of Berserk by 5 seconds. Okay. Now triggers 50% more often. Clarity, so that was, yeah. Picking your next. Shred, thrash, swipe. Okay. During Berserk, your combo point generating abilities bleed the target for an additional 100% of their damage over 8 seconds. Okay, so yeah. So the increased damage is good. The cooldown reduction may or not be worth it. It kind of depends on how much you use the actual main ability. I have found Tiger's Fury's damage bonus is increased 6%, 12%. Finishing moves have a 3% chance per combo point spent to grant 10% haste for 6 seconds. Finishing moves have a 3% chance to generate haste. Clear cast abilities grant 25% of their energy cost. Ferocious Bite Rip deal 15% increased damage. When you use 3 different combo point generating abilities within 4 seconds, the damage of your next 2 rips or ferocious bites is increased 5%. Okay, I just like that. Unleash a Furious Frenzy, clawing your target 5 times for physical damage and an additional bleed over 6 seconds. So it's kind of like a Blade Storm. Yeah. So yeah, I kind of like that. So, all right. So the left side seems more like direct damage. The right side seems more like bleed damage, and then just kind of a mismatch of like utility in the middle. So that seems good. Seems fairly balanced. Finishing moves have a 3% chance per combo point spent to grant you 10% haste for 6 seconds. That could be good. I do struggle with energy on my rogue. Less so the more I play, I find. I do also have Thistle Tea, so I've gotten a little better at kind of just using Thistle Tea every now and then. Command a swarm that heals or deals shadow damage over 12 seconds to a target, increases the effectiveness of your periodic effects on them by 25%. Upon expiration, finds a new target, preferring to alternate between friend and foe up to 3 times. Okay. Huh. Your finishing moves grant 3 energy per combo point spent and deal 5% increased damage. I like Now, Adaptive Swarm could be good in PvP or Mythics. I could see there being a benefit. An improved cap form that grants all of your known berserk effects. Known berserk effects. And last 30 seconds. Energy cost of all cap form abilities is reduced by 20%, and Prowl can be used once in combat. I like that. Because I won't have a Vanish. I have Stealth and that's it. Finishing moves have a 20% chance per combo point spent to refund 2 combo points or can shred deal damage as though they were stealth. I think that's going to be one ability too many though. Fury of 16 druid spells and abilities over 4 seconds. You will cast Ferocious Bite, Shred, Moonfire, Wrath, Regrowth, Rejuvenation, Rake, and Thread on appropriate nearby targets favoring your current shapeshift form. Well, that's interesting. Yeah. This is... I don't know. This could be good or bad. I guess it says appropriate nearby targets. There's cards in Hearthstone that do similar things to this, and 9 times out of 10 they end up backfiring on you, so... And it's a channeled ability as well. So if you get interrupted before it finishes channeling, you're on a 2-minute cooldown. And I imagine, so it says depending on what spec you're in. So what I could see happening is either being interrupted before you finish channeling, and either you get the damage and not the healing, or vice versa. And maybe you wanted one over the other. That's an interesting ability though. So now for the Druid Talents. So you actually get 2 to start out with, Rake and Rip. This is the first one I've seen you actually get 2 to begin with. So I want Meme. Or Mame. That's for bear form. Thrash, I'll take just to kind of be the placeholder of my fan of knives. So a AoE ability is not terrible. I don't think I need anything for swipe. I could take Starfire. I don't know why I would, but I can. Increase swipe damage by 100. I may have to take this. Just to move down the tree. That's bear form. I'll grab rejuvenation. That's fine. I'll grab improved bark skin. That's fine. Frenzy regeneration is a bear form ability, so I'm not going to worry about that. One more combo point. Well, I can't use Starfire. There may be a situation where I might have to heal, so that's perfectly fine. Okay. For 3 seconds after leaving cap form or travel form, you retain up to 40% movement speed. Okay. Increase your movement speed by 8%, 15%, okay. When you critically strike with an attack that generates a combo point, you gain an additional combo point. Damage over time cannot trigger this effect. Okay. Do I need an interrupt? Probably wouldn't hurt. I want Wild Charge because it'll give me a Shadow Step effect for cat form. When you use Bark Skin or Survival Instincts, absorb damage for 8 seconds. Okay. So you've got to think whatever you take, most abilities outside of your feral abilities will remove you from cat form. Don't need Soothe. Don't really want to take Wild Growth. I may have to, though, just to move things along. Healing done and healing taken increased 2%. Oh. Cyclone could be helpful. Magic damage and healing increased. So what would be more beneficial? Having well, remove corruption would be, I think, more beneficial than wild growth. Which doesn't move me down to nurturing instinct. That doesn't move me down. Do I want cyclone? So I'd have to take 3 talent points for that. I don't know that that's worth it. I also don't know what else to take. It's bear form. I mean, I guess for the sake of like being a plague carrier, these probably wouldn't be bad. Okay, well, at least we move down the tree now. So incapacitating roar. Mighty Bash is going to be better because incapacitating roar can be interrupted by damage. So yeah, even if it has a 1-minute cooldown. 4 seconds after shifting into bear form, your health and armor are increased by 10%. Okay. If you fell below 40% health, you cast Frenzied Regeneration up to once every 120 seconds. Store 5% of your damage to your next regrowth. Consumes all stored damage to increase its healing. Interesting. These were kind of interesting. Kind of interesting talents, how they are divide it up. Um, so they tried to do like feral, um, or cat form, bear form, um, resto, and balance. So feral, guardian, resto, and balance. They weave into each other, I think, a bit more than maybe you'd want. Although feral and guardian used to be one spec at one time. That's why druid has four now. So um, I have one more talent point, and I don't know what to put it into. Uh, Dispelling all enrage. Okay, I guess that's fine. So yeah, I feel better about the feral talents than I do the druid talents. So, and there we go. So yeah, so there you go. Hope you enjoyed that. I will set all this up and play around with it. I'm kind of interested and excited to see. As I said, I haven't really done much with feral, so yeah, see if I'm gonna have somewhat of an expectation of it playing like Rogue does, even though I know it's not exactly the same. So I'm interested to see how much of that um, kind of pans out and is true, and how much is just a little bit different. Because Feral is its own spec, and it can be, I know, fun to play once you kind of get the hang of it, kind of figure out what everything does. Um, as is par for the course when you start playing a spec, different spec, or spec you haven't played for a while. So yeah, so there you go. Hope you enjoyed that, and thank you for watching.